was doing loss prevention for Fry's Electronics because I thought I might want to get into security or law enforcement at the time.
Hmm.
I was trying to do jobs that might, help with that. So for Fry's, I did that for a while. From there, I went to Brinks Incorporated, which is a armored delivery service.
Okay.
I was a driver for them for a while, and it was a little closer, to law enforcement. You got to carry your weapon. You got to guard your partner whenever you went to pick up um, any kind of parcel or money for someone. And I also worked at Starbucks after that when I was going to school. And when it got heavier with time, Starbucks was just more flexible.
That's cool. Now with Starbucks, so I always think Starbucks is a super hard job because you have to be really coordinated with like all the stuff going on. So you have to be super organized, and then you have to work with all different types of people, like
Yeah.
everybody, right? The whole entire population is going. What did you feel were the skills you acquired from that experience?
Oh, well, from Starbucks, I think I acquired probably 70% of the skills that I use now. But it was customer service, staying level headed in a stressful situation, um, memorizing processes, um, keeping up with company standards, even though you feel like taking shortcuts, you shouldn't because, someone might notice or you might hand out the wrong drink or something like that.
Right.
So it just, aside from serving coffee, there was a lot of skills that I picked up from that job that you can use anywhere.
Totally. Did you appreciate when you were there how many skills you were learning, or did it take like a little bit after to realize, like, wow, I have all these skills?
It did take the correct mindset to realize that, hey, I'm learning a lot here, and I think what made me realize that was when I first started there, I was really stressed out and I was like, hey, I'm not getting it. I think this is too much. I might leave. And I spoke with the supervisor and she really encouraged me into being like, hey, like one thing you brought here is you have great customer service. And the rest of the barista skills, they're just going to come with time. But she said, I can't teach customer service.
Right.
You just have it or you don't. Um, and to a certain extent, that's true because it's more of a willingness to serve the person. If you're not willing to go the extra mile, then it's not going to happen. But after I had that conversation with her, like I was like, okay, I just need to relax. And once I relaxed, I noticed like I was picking up the processes faster. Um, After she said that, I also communicated more. So when a customer's drink was late or something, or like it had to be redone or something, or we ran out of an ingredient, I was able to make conversation with that person instead of just saying, "Oh, we'll be right with you." I was
Right.
able to like actually make conversation and find out what I could do to help them. So
Right.
I still use that in my job today. Um,
Totally. That's a huge skill. Just, I think that a lot of people don't realize how much of a skill it is just to work with people. And they
mm,
say as like jobs are changing over time, that as, certain tasks become automated, it's really those kinds of people skills that are actually, the human differentiator. So jobs that have require a lot of people skills are going to be sort of the jobs of the future, and tasks that can be automated will be automated. So you're at Starbucks, you're a barista, but you're thinking about like, what do you want to do next?
right.
You're not sure, right? Were you sure?
Not really. Part of the reason was I was trying to figure out a career where I could work anywhere in the world due to I was married to I'm
You're
married
married.
a
Still,
Swedish
same.
a Swedish woman,
Yeah.
and my wife is Swedish, and we were thinking, hey, in the future we might move to Sweden, so I need to pursue something that I can do anywhere.
Right.
And obviously, if you pursue law enforcement here, it's not necessarily going to transfer at all to another country.
Right. That
So,
makes
like, yeah, you might have experience, but they do things differently.
sure.
So, I thought, what should I study that I could transfer over there? And that was technology. Technology is the same all around the world. Um, Even if the languages are different, usually within a program, you just switch the language and you can work together.
Right.
You know what I mean? And most of the time, people in the technology field speak different languages.
Right.
So I started doing mobile development, um, and I got my AA in it. And
Okay.
it was hard finding beginners work out here. I did a couple small like projects, just like kind of making wireframes for a couple people on Upwork. But other than that, it was really hard to find anything in the Sacramento area.
Yeah.
And while I was searching, I got contacted by this IT job I do now, so I picked that up.
Yeah, I think is would you say it's true that like when you start to get into some any kind of field like technology field or whatever,
Mhm.
it's a good a good first step is like picking up contract work, but then making the leap to a full-time job is hard, right? It's
Yeah,
hard to figure out like how to get in, who's going to give you a shot, like who's going to give you the break that will be your first job, right?
yeah, absolutely. But the good thing about contracting is that it can open several doors,
Yeah.
and you can decide which one you want to go to.
Right. So you found an IT job and it's working at Sutter Health. And how did and and it's awesome experience. So let's talk about that job, like what you do, the skills you acquire, and how you like transferred your skills that you already had. You already had all these job skills that you could apply to the job you have now, right?
Yeah. So basically, I'm what you would call a deployment specialist. So what we do is we go to different hospital sites and we use what's called SCCM. It's basically pulls all the computers that are on the network and gives you all the information. So we're able to notice which ones need to be upgraded. So with that, we go in and we just start finding them, communicating with the leaders at the hospital, getting them prepared for us to arrive. That way, they're not caught off guard when we're like, "Oh, we're ripping your computer out of the wall," you know.
Right.
Um, which right there is where communication comes in. You have to absolutely let these people know, even though technically it's your higher up's job to let the site know.
Right.
Sometimes that doesn't get through. The email's lost or they don't get the phone call. So we go in and we let them know, like, hey, we're here to perform some upgrades. And I mean, there's so many skills I've picked up, but basically, I've learned data migration, um, how to install programs that I've never dealt with before, how to transfer databases over to that program and make those connections so that it still works. They don't lose any of their data. Um, I've learned a lot of different nomenclature for like the different HP models that they use.
Sure.
Um, we do hardware as well. We switch out hardware inside the systems, and yeah, it's just every day you're learning something new, or you're learning how to work in a hospital is another one. So we work in ER, OR, labor and delivery, ISO rooms, labs. So all of those places have different what do you call it? They have different rules basically of what you need to wear when you walk in that room,
Right.
what your behavior should be like, and yeah, over this past year, I've picked up so much stuff, and I'm still learning. And I think it's super important because you don't think about it when you think IT.
Right.
you're like, oh yeah, sure, they work with computers, but at the same time, you're working in a hospital, so you have to be sure to follow those rules as well.
What do you think, like, if you were to characterize people who are in your job, like you, what do you think are like the standout qualities or standout job skills that make you successful in your job? Or
Uh,
make anyone successful in that job?
in this job,
Yeah.
what are the skills that stand out?
Yeah.
Sure. Um, Definitely customer service and the willingness to learn. Sometimes you have to go the extra mile, and let's say this is software that you've never seen before. And
Right.
then you talk to your tech lead and they're like, oh, I've never seen that either. So you're in a situation where you've taken down the computer or you need to, and no one's seen it before. So you have to be willing to jump through the hoops and make the phone calls to maybe the vendor or go on their website and figure out what this software is all about. So willingness to learn is a huge part, because not only does it show the company you're currently working for that you're driven and that you're trying to make goals, meet the goals no matter what.
Right.
But it's also good for you. Like you can say, "Oh, I've mastered so and so program. Like I learned how to install and reinstall and repair that program." The other huge part I think that's bigger than that is learning how to speak with people that, for lack of a better term, they might have a god complex. You know, they've gone to school, they've gotten their PhD, and they're held in high regard. You know, you're working with doctors, nurses, surgeons, and you need to be able to hold your ground in a respectful way
Yep.
and speak to these people and just stay on their level and be able to make a conversation with them like, hey, I'm here to help you out. I'm not here to mess anything up for you. I'm going to reassure you that I'm going to transfer over all your data. You know, I'm not going to lose anything. You're not going to lose anything, which is the biggest concern in places like this, because, you know, it's years or decades of work that are on their systems. So you have to be able to reassure a doctor or a director or a CEO of the hospital that their data is going to be okay.
Right. Now, this is the first kind of like big company experience you've had, right? Where you're in kind of like a big system. There's a lot of employees. You have to learn the different groups and levels and stuff.
Yeah.
What have you learned? Like, what would you say are the most valuable learnings you've had about like working with people, not just in the setting of like, you know, helping doctors or nurses, you know, change software, but like working with people on a team, working with people to figure out how to navigate in a company. Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. You mean like leadership skills type of thing?
Yeah. And also like, do you need people to help you out? Like to help you navigate, for example, if you were to acquire a different type of job within the company, you'd have to know people and have them help you out. What has that experience been like?
So yeah, you absolutely need to know how to leverage your resources, I guess you would call that, and how to use your leadership skills in other situations. So let's say, yeah, so several times I've had to reach out to people I don't know. However, they're in our network as someone who's an application analyst level 3 for the laboratory. You know, it's like, hey, we ran into a problem. You describe it so and so. You need to be able to communicate with this person in a way that they're going to pay attention, basically.
Right.
You don't know them. They're very busy, you know, and you're trying to let them know, hey, we need your help. Um, it does help that in this situation, our project is high priority.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the time they'll drop what they're doing. Other times they'll say, oh, you have to reach out to me tomorrow or in 2 days. So learning how to work with that and be flexible and communicate that with your team leads and other team members is very important.
Right.
Because if you don't, someone else on your team might just barge in, take that computer down, and then you have a problem within
Right.
team members. So communicating with them is really important. Other skills are, at least in our team, we found that this works really well. Making micro teams and switching off who's leading them. So sometimes I'll lead a team of 3,
Uh-huh.
and we'll go knock out a department in like an operating room or operating area.
Mm-hmm.
So in the surgery area, just the 3 of us will go, and then the team lead has to keep everyone on the same page. It's like, is your wire management okay? Are you checking all the programs? Stuff like that. So you definitely learn how to show respect to your team members so that you get that back. And you're not just nitpicking them, you're actually encouraging them to do their best work for themselves.
Right.
Definitely learn that. And just mutual respect in both of those situations where you're contacting someone you don't know, or if you're working with team members, it's super important to hold that mutual respect where you're treating them how you want to be treated.
Right.
And it does pay off. It works really well. I think that's a big skill to have as well.
Yeah. Do you feel like, how long have you been doing your job now?
Let's see, almost a year. It'll be a year in October.
Do you feel like you've just like learned so much in the past year?
Yeah, it's like it's like almost too much to bring it all up. It's so much.
Yeah.
I didn't ever think I would work with like specifically the Windows environment so much. Like I thought I was going to be making mobile apps for iOS and for Android.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't expect to learn all this other stuff. Especially at least for me, this job opportunity, they picked me up because of customer service.
Mm-hmm.
Through a phone call. So the interview was on a phone call, and the guy was just like, "Wow, you seem really great. Like, I really enjoyed talking to you." And I think that in itself explains that sometimes it's not what you know,
Right.
it's how you portray yourself and how you carry yourself. And if you're a very open person and willing to learn and enthusiastic and willing to adapt to someone else's goals and help them get to those goals,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's more important sometimes than what you know, because you can learn the stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's great advice. And sometimes it's hard to know when you're in the moment of finding a job that you should say, for example, willingness to learn is a skill that you have. That's a real skill that people care about, right?
yeah, I believe so. If it's like you can be told what to do and then only do that, or you can be told what to do and then build upon it.
Right.
So that's where that comes in, where you go the extra mile.
So now that you've had your first job in IT, do you feel hopeful about what your opportunities are next?
Yes, definitely. So I've started applying recently
Uh-huh.
within Sutter, because so far everything I've seen in Sutter, I'm loving it. I like how everyone carries themselves and how the company runs. So I want to stay in Sutter if possible. However, I have heard of other team members just going to other hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also a possibility. But just looking at what's available, there's programming jobs that I studied mobile development, so I might be able to transfer to that. Recently, I applied to an application analyst job. So those are more specialized in specific apps. And I work with 10, 20 different apps, maybe more than that.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they only focus on 1 or 2 and become experts on that application.
Right.
From what I've been told from one of the phone interviews I had, they're like really impressed with that.
Yeah.
So it's definitely an avenue that could happen. And yeah, there's just so many different jobs just within IT within Sutter that you could totally go for it. There's like back-end database work, if that's
Right.
what you're into. You could go work on database and maintain it. And yeah, it's just there's a lot of avenues that opened up with this contracting job.
That's cool. So let's say somebody's watching and they're inspired by your story and they want to do a similar thing. So move from like a retail job working in fries or
Yeah,
a Brinks to IT, or working,
absolutely.
in hospitality as a barista or a waitress or
Mhm.
hostess or waiter, and they want to get into IT. What kind of job advice would you give somebody just starting out and maybe in your shoes, a year ago or 2 years ago? What would you say?
Sure. I would say number one, keep your head up. Like,
Yeah,
you're worth more than you think. Um, and really, so what you've actually helped me do is write down and categorize what my skills are. Like there were some skills that I didn't even know were a skill. Like you said, like willingness to learn. Write down your skills and then find the jobs that you already check those off on your list. You're like, oh, I've got that. I've got customer service. I have worked with hospitality for 2 years or whatever. And just apply to these jobs and you might get picked up. Don't short sell yourself. Like you apply to more than these than you think. And if you are looking for specifically something like what I'm doing, there are companies out there that will pick you up as a contractor.
yeah,
Just search for contract work, and they'll help you find a place where you fit. So they'll take exactly what you're good at, just like Kristen at Ox and Josh at Ox are doing, and they'll help you find where you fit. There's a place where you fit specifically where you might have skills that I don't have, but someone wants those skills.
totally. And what do you think about the role of people? Like, do people help each other out in finding jobs?
Absolutely. I actually helped two of my friends get into this. One of them was fresh out of college or university, had his bachelor's, and he was having trouble finding a job in, I think it was architectural design or something like that. And the other one was a bartender. So, uh, if they got into the jobs they wanted, which one was videography and one was the design portion, of
Yeah,
course they'd make more money. But they were willing to take the chance when I told them how good this job was, and it might be a pay cut for now, but you're still getting a lot of experience and it'll open doors for you. So, yeah, they were psyched. I told my recruiter about them and got them interviews, and yeah, now they work with me and they're really happy with it. So,
isn't that the best feeling to help people on their?
yeah, it is the best. Like, your friend, don't be afraid to ask. Your friend might be in a jam, and it just really shows that you care about them, where they're at. And yeah, they work with me every day, and yeah, it's been great. It's been really cool.
Awesome. So I think that's mostly the time that we have today. So we're so thankful to have you on. And for anyone who's watching, you can go to ox.work and sign up to meet your own personal Ox guide who will help you on your job path, like we helped Tito with his. And you can follow along his story on Instagram, and we'll probably have a blog. And I'm sure we'll talk again because I think your story is so great and you've been so helpful already to people in your community too. So everyone, it's been great to talk with you this morning, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys. Good
Okay,
luck.
bye.